So we're starting a podcast.
We are starting a podcast.
That's exciting. This was more your idea than anybody else's. This is like your vision kind of coming to life right now.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, I figured we went through the big rebrand and the way the world is moving, I feel like messaging is done this way. You know, people are listening more to podcasts. That's where they're getting their information. And then we started talking about just how we could get that out and let people know what's happening and just all the different conversations that we get to be part of and trying to give people a chance to be a fly on the wall for some of those. And here we are. So let's go.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm excited for the fact that we're going to come back and watch this and be like, oh God.
That was awful.
We were so bad. So
yeah, I think honestly, halfway through this, it's going to be a lot better. But I've been sitting in on meetings for about a year, right? And in those meetings, I know for the first initial meeting, you kind of always go through your origin story. And I feel like that's kind of like a good way to start this is like, how did you get into the financial industry as a whole? And how did you start doing that? What made you want to do that? If you could start with that.
So what happened is that when I graduated from high school, my next door neighbor gave me some graduation money, and she pulled me aside, and like I was always at her house. Her kids were always at our house. They were a little older, and so they would watch us, and just got to know them real good. And she basically just gave me a book, and she said, Rob, if I would have had this book when I was your age and just done what it says, I would be retired and rich right now. And the book was called The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. And so little 18-year-old Rob, I read the book. I went down to my local bank, opened up an IRA. I didn't know anything about investing. This was in 2004. And so, I put in all the money I had. It was a couple $1,000s. And then I also started putting in $100 a month, which was, a huge commitment at that time as a, broke college kid getting ready to go into college. And so that's how I started. And what happened is that I was working at a coffee shop while going to school, and I got to know a gentleman who would come in and buy us coffee. And this guy's name is Brian, his wife's name is June, and we would just talk. And one day I was on my lunch break, and they started talking to me about investing. And they're the first person that ever offered to like sit down and teach me how investing worked and how it fit into financial planning. So I just became a happy client, and that was kind of what I thought was going to be the end of it. But then, basically they called me up one day and was like, hey, we're expanding. We're looking for some people part-time. You're a sharp kid. Why don't you come work with us? You can earn while you learn, and we'll pay for you to get licensed. And so that was the start. And I ended up working with them for about 6 years, and then took a break from the industry. I went and spent 4 years in the military in the Special Operations Community. So the Ranger Regiment, deployed, got to do all that fun stuff. But I always knew I was going to come back to do this. And when I got out of the military, I was working for a large firm. Then ultimately ended up partnering with a good friend of mine named Richard London, and we ended up splitting things up. Nothing bad, just timing was right to kind of do our own separate things, and Nexus was born, so here we are.
Yeah, and I was around for that, which was really cool.
Yeah, you were, and I think too, like I don't really talk about this a lot when we're meeting with clients, just because, you got to keep things somewhat short, but when I opened that IRA, I went to my local bank and no one taught me anything. And so I just knew I wanted to open an IRA, but they literally opened up an IRA all within about 15 minutes of me walking the bank. I had an IRA. They took all my money. They took my automatic deposits, but they didn't teach me anything about investment allocation. They didn't show me anything. They had me 100% on money market. So here I was, an 18-year-old kid, and no one showed me what I was doing. And even though I was trying to do the right thing, because no one educated me, my efforts would have, if no one had ever met me and I just kept doing that, it never would have worked out. I mean, just as you know, money market's being super conservative. And so it really kind of pissed me off. Like that, I don't really talk about this a lot, but some of the first things I learned as I started working in the financial industry was that first happened to me. And then I also started seeing some of these other products that were being sold to consumers, specifically in the way of life insurance, where I'm not the type of person where it's like, oh, cash value or permanent style policies are horrible all the time, but they can only be used in a very like niche situation. And I just started seeing how kind of just, I don't know, not corrupt, that's too strong of a word, but just how bad the financial industry was and how it was so transactional, often at the expense of the Main Street consumer. And so as a young guy, I honestly got really fired up about like helping people and making a difference there. And I think that's kind of where it's always led to, is always looking for like, what can we do to actually make this better for the people we're serving? So that's kind of how it started.
And I mean, that's honestly where the podcast comes into, because I feel like, again, these aren't the conversations that you can have in that first meeting.
Yeah.
And that's why people kind of get to see what happens behind closed doors, why you make the decisions that you do, why you make the recommendations that you do. But also, you never have people make decisions on the first meeting.
Yep.
And something that, honestly, the podcast, everybody who meets with us will always hear is, once people have all the facts, they can make the best decisions for themselves.
Exactly right.
And their families, and you never. Oh, did I already say you never have people make decisions on the first meeting?
Yeah. We talk. I mean, and that's a big thing. And there's things that I've learned from just other people I've really respected, and that was one thing that really stood out to me, was just an education-based approach, and just making sure that people had the opportunity to feel comfortable and confident in their decisions. And I genuinely believe the more that people look into what we're recommending, the more they want to do it. Usually the only time I ever have trouble with people moving forward with the solutions is when they don't actually read through the stuff that we give them. But I think as people really start to see what's happening behind the scenes with their investment portfolios and really with planning as a whole, you start to see like, oh my gosh, like I'm this is my life savings. Like, and so it comes down to like, do we really want to bet our life savings on hoping we get something right? Or is it worth, spending a little bit of money to work with someone and know that like, hey, we're giving you the highest likelihood of accomplishing this. Obviously no guarantees. Sorry guys, wish I could do that. But just not the way the industry works. But if you can help people just avoid some of the mistakes, like, we're kind of going to left field, but one of the things I love to review, every year Dalbar comes out with a study. They call it the quantitative analysis of investment behavior. And it looks at what's going on with the average investor across the United States. And what they find over and over is that it's ourselves. We're our own worst enemy. We are the ones who get things wrong and kind of self-sabotage. And I think a lot of that just has to do with a lack of education. We've talked about, and you see it when we talk about in our presentation, where just the financial literacy rate. There was a study by FINRA that showed that the financial literacy rate, they would give people just a standard test, not even a hard test, and just see how many people could pass it. And if you look back 2009, 2010, about 40 to 45% of people could pass that test, a basic financial literacy test. And as of 2019, that had trended all the way down to, I think it was something like 30%. So what we're seeing is, even though we have more information than ever, people are less financially literate than they've ever been. And so I think that's a big problem as a nation. And the ability to change someone's life substantially. And when we talk about multi-generational financial independence, that's really what it can be. Like, if we can show someone how to build that wealth, but then teach them how to do it so that they can teach the people they care most about the same things, it has the chance to truly change their family tree forever. And so that gets me really excited. And that's one of the things I really love about what we do.
I don't think anybody could memorize that much stuff unless they were genuinely passionate about it.
I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I was just, while we were talking, I'm like, man, I've been talking for like 5 minutes straight. But you've seen it on meetings too. I do that, and I'm like, just talking and just talking.
No, but it's cool too, because you got study after study after study, where it's like, these real things, you can look them up.
Yeah, look them up, guys.
We're not just BSing over here,
which
I enjoy.
I know as we get further, I already see the comments are gonna be like, how come Robert talks so much? I'm like, I know, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm trying my best here. I don't think we said too, so I don't even know, maybe, again, off the cuff, like, Josie's gonna talk to me and I wanna talk to her here, but like, just stick with us. Part B is gonna be me interviewing Josie. I don't know, maybe we can cut that out if we don't need to say it, but like,
we can cut whatever out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it'll be
people are gonna be like, this
it'll be slightly balanced.
I just think people are gonna be like, this poor girl never gets to talk. I'm like, oh, he's mansplaining all day.
This girl has the easiest job in the world. That's what they're gonna think. But we do have a financial company. It's called Nexus.
Oh yeah, we have a financial firm. It's called Nexus Wealth Management.
But why that name? Because we went through a name change.
Yes.
Very, very recently.
Yeah, the past couple of months. That's so funny. We didn't introduce ourselves. We just started talking. Yeah, I'm Robert.
Josie.
Yeah, hey guys. So we did. Went to the name change. Like I said, it was partnered up with a really good friend of mine, Richard London. He runs a financial firm called Link Financial Advisory out of Las Vegas. If you guys are in Vegas, check him out. He's an awesome, awesome dude. Great firm. He taught me a lot. And Rich was really, really influential for me. I mean, not a lot of people know this, but again, we're on a podcast, we can talk. But Rich was actually my big brother in our fraternity when I was going to college. And I'm so grateful to him, again, as someone who impacted me, because when you're going and you're pledging in a fraternity, again, I'm talking, I was 18, 19 years old, you have to pick a big bro. And it's supposed to be someone who's kind of a role model who helps you understand not just like how the fraternity works, but just like college and life in general. And I was talking to Rich one day about this other guy that I was like, oh, maybe I'll ask him to be my big bro. And he looked at me and he goes, dude, don't do that. That guy's an effing loser. And he was because this guy was like, he was just a kid who barely passing his classes, smoking weed all the time.
It's a fraternity.
God bless America. Smoke some weed if you want to, I don't really care. But like at that time in my life, Rich was further along. He was already he knew he was going to the financial industry, and he just was like, don't do that. And then, and when I used to work for this other firm, he would give me advice even though I didn't work for him. I would call him up and I'd be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. How should I? And he really started to help guide me and teach me a lot. And then I kind of got complacent. In our industry, we get paid residually, so you can get lazy and you can get to a point where, you're just like, I'm making enough. And that started happening to me right around COVID time. I was like, the world's getting stupid. I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to kind of coast. And Rich really shook me. He was like, dude, your goals are so small. Your family's counting on you. Like, what are you doing? You should be doing more than this. You're better than this. And like, he really pushed me out of my comfort zone. And so partnered with him for a few years. We knew it was never going to be a forever, till death do us part type relationship. But just helped me get going. And then, a couple months, I think it was around August of 2025, he just kind of is like, what, man, you're at that spot. You're ready to be out by your own. You can do your own thing. You've got your own system. Like, it's time to fly, little birdie. And he kind of just gave me that nudge. And so why the name Nexus? If you look at the word Nexus, it basically means like a central hub, a connecting points. And that is the role that we want to play for our clients. We want to sit down and look at things. So much of the industry is transactional, where when I sit down with people, and again, you've heard me say this a million times, but it is, I sit down with people and they'll have investments over here. They're doing this with their insurance, this with their debt. They've got the real estate goals. They've got, their 401k over here. They've got all these random financial products. But no one's ever actually sat down with them and showed them like, hey, here's how we take all this stuff, put it into one comprehensive plan that gets everything working together versus independently of each other. And that is my goal and my vision for Nexus. And that's why we went with the name, because we want to be that central hub for a client where we can look at everything, put it all into one plan that gets it all working together, and just make sure that they are doing the best they possibly can on every aspect of their finances, not just one piece of it or just transactionally selling them products.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
There's a lot. Let me just keep talking, Josie. If you keep asking questions, I mean, I've got my energy drink. My pinky is out.
I think that's what it is. Wow. I've got like, my hands are shaking because of my energy drink. And I'm I don't know if it's because I'm nervous or like I'm the energy drink.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both. I was nervous, so I started talking. I was like, oh, this is easy.
You do this all day, every day.
I do this all day, yeah.
Yeah. So, did you go over the goals of the podcast?
We have not.
I feel like we've kind of touched on it, but like not in depth.
I think the biggest things that I want to accomplish with this podcast is, one, I want to give you guys, the viewer, the opportunity to be that fly on the wall, to be able to see what's happening and hear these types of conversations. Because, and when we were talking about it, Josie, you've sat in on, close to 200 appointments when we were figuring it out just in this last year. And that's part-time. And so like the amount of things you've been exposed to from every walk of life, people who are super wealthy, people who are just getting started, you really start to figure a lot out and start to see that so much of this industry is just problem solving. And I wanted people to get a chance to see that. I think a lot of times with younger people, they just don't really have that guidance necessarily of someone showing them, here's how you can do this. So that's a goal there, is giving people the ability to learn more about specific financial subjects that we will cover. So when we're talking about the specifics of investment strategies or insurance or whatever financial subject we choose. The other thing I want to do is I want to be able to make a podcast that where we also can talk from a plan administrator standpoint. So this won't be for everyone. It might be a little bit niche when we do these meetings, but our main business is 401ks. And again, talking about financial literacy, the 401k is the gateway drug to financial literacy. It is the opportunity for businesses to set themselves apart from every other company that's in their industry, to build loyalty, to recruit and retain the top employees. And so I want to give a venue where I can talk to plan administrators, hey, how do we really dial this in? Because if they're looking for a competitive advantage and a way to also significantly reduce their taxes, it's one of the best vehicles. And then the third thing is I want to bring in people who are achieving success in whatever that is. So that doesn't mean like, oh, I just made a ton of money. That's great. We'll have those people on too. But I really want to talk to people about what they've done to become successful in their industry. So hearing their origin stories, whether that's people like I've got military buddies who have done incredible things. I want to hear that because there might be someone out there who's like, yeah, of course I want to do well with money, but I really want to go into the military and I want to know what that looks like. Great, let's bring someone in who's successful about that, or bring in different business owners, or just industry professionals. I think is the last thing is just like having attorneys come in and talk about estate planning, having CPAs come in and talk about tax mitigation strategies, having bookkeepers, having whoever, just to give people that opportunity to like actually learn, but be entertained as well.
I think that's really smart. Yeah. I think before I even met you, or before I even got into this, I was already looking up, okay, how do I start saving for retirement? How do I start getting into these industries where you can learn about financial wellness? And so many of them, I feel like, use language that was difficult to understand, big words, and I just kind of went into it assuming that the viewers already knew, which a lot of them probably did. But I think that's also like, again, one of our values is we want to create something that everybody from every walk of life can listen to, not just high net worth individuals, not just business owners, not just people who are just getting started and don't know anything. And so creating this jargon and this language where it's super easy to understand and super easy to follow along. So you actually feel like you're learning something instead of just like treading water and then having to pause and search up a lot of this other kind of language and stuff.
Grok, what does this mean? What is he talking about? Yeah.
And so I think that's really cool because I know that you and I have talked about if somebody just knows like the values that we have for this company and the values that we have for this podcast and the conversations that we have about our clients is how do we serve them the best way? How do we give them the best experience? And so I think this is just like another one of those aspects. So
yeah. Well, and I mean, you're kind of stumbling onto like some of our core values, which I think we could definitely talk more about. But I mean, you said it earlier, is like once people have all the facts, they'll make the best decision for them and their family. And just giving people an approach that it's never pushy. It's always about education and always about putting their needs first. Because again, I believe 100% in capitalism. I think that if you give away enough value, people will never leave. And so that's kind of how it's gotten to where it's at, is always finding ways to give away more than we're ever taking. And I think that another big part of that is just also understanding that we are stewards. Like, this is not our money, it's our clients' money. And our whole job is to support what their goals are. And so that's a big part of how I try and approach this as well, and you've seen it, I use myself as the example more often than not. I pull up my own accounts. I show people my own investment strategy, show people what I'm setting aside. I practice what I preach because if anything, when I was younger, like I had these goals of like, oh, I want to be like this poster child for people, everyone to know me. And now I'm kind of more on the other side. It's like, I almost just want to be kind of anonymous. But like what I do see is that I just have practiced what I've preached since I was 18 years old, and I'm 39 now. And like I look at where we're at in life, and God bless America, it has worked great, and we've saved a ton of money. Like my wife and I are doing awesome. We have a wonderful life, and I just think there's so much opportunity in America that if people really started seeing some of those daily habits that can move them towards success, our world today is so much about like instantaneous, and I want it now, and everyone thinks that that's the way it works, but like, and it does for some people. Great, that's awesome. Again, God bless America. But the majority of us, that's not it. It's systematically the slight edge. It's day after day doing the little things that move you towards those goals. And so I want to kind of dispel that for people. Like I want people to see like you can basically guarantee yourself that you're going to become wealthy if you do the right things long enough and you follow strategies that are just proven. So again, that's a big part of what I want to talk about.
That's really, really cool. I think part of that too is like you've been doing this for so long, respectfully, that
oh no, I'm middle-aged. Oh God, I've been doing it so long. Yeah.
But you've seen the industry grow, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. How has it changed, do you feel like? Because I know that with the name change, with the podcast, with all these different kind of stuff, you're doing this because you see, one, adding more value, like what you were saying. Yeah. But also because the industry's changing. How's it changing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, like a lot of what I'm seeing as far as the way the industry is changing is just that there's more data than ever, but people are less informed than ever. And so having a way to like kind of bridge that gap, that's something that I really, really want to do. And I've also seen too that our industry, it's more regulated than ever. But just because it's more regulated, like being compliant doesn't mean that the client is informed. And so that is something that I see all the time. Where just like I remember when I first started in this, I thought it was hard to open an account back then as far as all the paperwork and rules and everything you had to follow. It was nothing. Like it was so simple. And now just to open up an account, there is so much, I don't know, not red tape, but just there's so much from a compliance standpoint that we have to follow, which I'm not opposed to. But again, I see that like rule makers are always like setting new rules, but not focusing on informing the client. And so I think that's another big thing. And I've seen a lot of financial products change. Like products come into favor and out of favor. And it's just like this revolving door of I see products like every couple of years, they make their way back around. And so just staying on top of that is another big thing that I want to make sure that we're helping people do. And then the big one is AI. I mean, AI is definitely changing things. So technical issues,
Yeah.
fun times, camera cut out. You missed we only missed like a minute.
Yeah.
All right, thank God. You could see that the camera stopped recording. But yeah, we were just talking about just the industry, the way it's changing. And the last thing I was going to mention was just AI and the way that it has been impacting our industry and how we have really been leaning into that to make sure that it's just a leveraging tool, and just, I don't see it replacing advisors in the near future. I honestly think as far as at least my generation and mostly your generation, I just don't think people yet are going to trust their life savings to AI. Maybe down the road, 10, 15 years, I'll be getting ready to retire about then. So good luck. I'll just sell my business to you right as I walk away and AI takes over. But in all seriousness, I think that there's always going to be a place for people and people are always going to be driving the ship when it comes to AI. And so that's kind of where I think our industry is at and some of the biggest changes that I've seen.
Okay. I do know that we are somewhat of a smaller firm. We do really well, but a lot of people, when they walk in, they see us as a small firm. So I kind of I'm just curious, and I think that this would be something that our viewers would want to know as well, is when they're coming to us and they're coming to you or to me, talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about, who do we work with and how does that work? Because we're really not that small of a firm, even though when you're seeing us, you're kind of just seeing the tippy tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely. You want to handle that and I'll cut it out?
You don't like it?
You just want to hold I don't care. You want to hold your chopstick?
It's good. It's good.
I'm not going to cut that out.
I can re-say that.
You're just holding chopstick. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
No,
I'm going to keep it in there. All right.
No, it's fine.
When the camera's out, guys, Josie's
I'm really
I need some chopstick.
I'm really dehydrated.
That's all right. All right. So, but yeah, with our firm, on paper, we definitely, we're not like a mega firm by any means. We do have a lot of clients. So we currently work with about 700 households, about 1,100 accounts. And so we have a lot of different clients. And people sometimes ask, how does that happen? And I've heard people say, companies like that, they have no time for their clients or blah, blah, blah. And that's why, we only have so many clients. And again, that's a misconception. It's a partial truth. In the financial industry, there's two main roads that people can go if they're going to work as an advisor. And those different roads they can travel are a rep as the portfolio manager or the rep as the advisor. And the rep as the portfolio manager is a very common way. And this is where you'll see people where sometimes people are like, why do some advisors have these $1 million, $2 million minimums? Why is that the case? And the case for that is a lot of them are serving as the portfolio manager. What that means is that advisor is the one researching and picking every single stock, bond, mutual fund, and ETF that goes into each one of their clients' portfolios. They're tracking the market. They're coming up with their own strategies. They're the one building the portfolio. And so the issue with that is that you can only do that well. First of all, you have to be good at it. If you suck, then you're never going to have any clients. But you can only do that well for maybe 50 or 60 clients. Anything beyond that, you really just can't do it for that many people because you also have to process all trades, all research, everything. And so that is why you'll see people have those bigger minimums because it has to move the needle every time they accept a client. With us, I always wanted to go the opposite route. I think the biggest market is the middle market. And so the example people will hear me use a lot is if we were to look at, if you were to look at Target versus Nordstrom's, okay? This shirt, for example, I could probably go and find a shirt similar to this at Target or a similar shirt at Nordstrom's. At Target, this shirt would probably cost me $30, $35. At Nordstrom's, this same shirt will probably cost me $100, $150. But if you were to look at who makes more money selling shirts, well, it's Target. Why? It's not because their prices are higher, it's because they cater to the middle markets. And so by doing that, they have so many more people coming in and buying shirts. And that's the way that I looked at the financial world, is that, we're going to talk a little bit more now when you're telling your story about just what's going on and the way that, wealth is moving from the older generation to newer generation with, with what's going on with people passing on and baby boomers retiring and all that good stuff. But to me, I always thought, man, if I have a lot of clients, one, it makes your business bulletproof. Like, to lose a client is very rare. We hardly ever lose clients. But if it does happen, there's no one client that can make or break us. The other thing, too, is that from a standpoint of new business, we always have new business coming in, because when we have as many people as we work with, because I don't have to pick and choose every single stock, bond, mutual fund, and ETF, because we partner with a firm that does that. So we partner with a company primarily called SEI Private Trust Company. They currently work with, with about 8,000 of the 350,000 advisors that are in the United States. So it's only about 2%. It's a very small number that they maintain relationships with. But they have a team of about 130 investment professionals that when we partner with them, that team is the one who's managing all of our client assets. So that team is researching everything, doing all the legwork, which means that we don't have to do that. So it frees up all of our time to do stuff like this, where we can focus on education, focus on meeting with clients, and really be about the advising part versus versus trying to be like the expert in everything. And so I just always felt like, one, it's a bigger market to cater to the middle market. Not that we can't work with high net worth people. We do. We have a lot of that. But by catering to the middle market, it allows us to make the biggest difference. We always have a lot of new business coming in because people talk and money moves. And so we have all these people where like things are constantly coming in that route. But it also gives us the ability where, like, as smart as I like to think you and I are, we can't compete with a team like SEI. And so it's always weird to me when I see advisors who are like, I'm going to be the guy, I have the best ideas. And then I'm like, okay, well, how are you going to compete with a team like SEI, where they have 130 plus professionals building portfolio? They have a $10 million plus budget to research the market. Like, how do you compete with that? I just don't think you do. So I think it's a better use of our time as the advisor to focus on the education standpoint versus trying to be like the expert or be the guy. So that's kind of how our business model works. And I'd say it's mostly Main Street Middle America, but I mean, we have definitely clients who have multiple millions of dollars that are invested, but they're just hardworking people, spent their their time building up wealth, and that's where we're at.
Do you want to mention too, what stops me from saying, okay, Robert, like, see ya, I'm gonna go work with SEI by myself?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. It's just not possible. I mean, SEI only deals with institutional level clients, meaning that if you wanted to work directly with SEI, it's a $25 million minimum. And so this is a great question. I'm glad you asked it because I completely skipped it. But this is why the relationship works so well. Our firm has tens upon tens of millions of dollars at SEI. And so we get access to that investment management team that individuals would normally need $25 million to get up, to do business with them. And so it just gets access for our clients to investment strategies that they would normally never be able to use because they just don't have the minimums required to work with these different firms. And so, but because SEI is treating us as the institution, all of our clients get access to that same investment management team without needing $25 million. But if you have $25 million, hey, we're here for you. All right?
We can do that too.
I can definitely help you, all right? You don't need it. So the last thing too is that when we're talking about who our ideal client is, another thing when I've been building our system out is I've tried to build it in a way where it's tailored to the top end of clients that we'll ever work with. So people who are independently wealthy, they have a couple $1 million of investable assets. I've built out our entire system that caters to that individual, but it's repeatable. But then I make that system available to our brand newest client as well. And so I always kind of think of it, there's a great book, it's called Excellence Wins. It's by Hort Schulze. He is the CEO of Ritz-Carlton, and I just love the idea of what Ritz-Carlton is. It's affordable luxury. And if you think about it, the average Main Street middle American, if they really wanted to, they could stay at a Ritz. It might be expensive for them, but they could. It's not unattainable. But it's kind of like just the gold standard when it comes to hotels. What I've wanted to do with Nexus is I've wanted to build a Ritz-Carlton type experience at like a Hilton price, so that we're not the cheapest by far. There's cheaper options, but the strategies that we bring out, I think, are top tier strategies, but at a price point that's affordable for like Main Street middle America.
I think it's also, I mean, it's so cool of a business model because you have this idea of like, even though we're not selling a specific product, it's this idea of like investing in something that's inelastic demand. So it's like something that people buy on an ongoing basis, no matter their, net worth or who they are. It's this idea of like, would you rather invest in toilet paper? It's not sexy. Yeah. It's not fun. It's not something we all like necessarily want to buy, but it's something that every single person buys all the time, over and over, regardless of how the market's doing, regardless of economic downturns or anything like that, versus a car dealership where you might make a lot of money on one car, but it's not something that people buy all the time, so you have to work harder for it. And the payoff is really nice, but it is cool to have like that inelastic demand type business.
Well, and on that last thing of like, that's again with 401ks. So for people who are looking at maybe going into the financial industry, that's why I'm such a big believer in 401ks. There's a ton to learn. There is a lot to learn, but it's also the decision makers, even the CEOs of the companies we're going after, for the most part, they're just like upper middle class people. What I've seen, and I'm not taking away from everyone, like there's a lot of wealthy people that I've worked with that are awesome people. But what I've just seen, like middle America is not super hard to deal with. They have realistic goals. They value the advice. They don't feel like they're smarter than everyone. They're not trying to prove anything to you. They're genuinely excited to learn. And so that's another thing, even with the 401k business, is why we've really gone that route, is that you are able to work and make the biggest impact in one small spot, but you can literally shift the whole culture of a company if you do it right. So that's kind of why we've ran the model we've ran. It seems to be working really well. And, I guess some people probably be like, oh, you're an idiot. But hey, it's working good for us,
Yeah, we enjoy it. Yeah. So,
do you have anything else, or do you, if not?
I don't think so. I feel like we kind of touched on everything and went into a lot of different really good things. Cool. We definitely covered the values, which I think was the whole point of this first.
All right, quick break, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Maybe a word from our sponsors.
Okay, yeah.
All right, cool.
I love our sponsors.
Hey guys, we hope you are enjoying the podcast. As we mentioned, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Our sponsors for today's video are ourselves at Nexus Wealth Management. So there's a couple of really easy ways that you can support us.
The first and easiest way is please leave a like, comment, anything that you want to learn, anything that you found educational. The second thing is there's going to be a link below with the link to our website. Please go look at our Google reviews, maybe leave one for yourself. Let people know that you found this content.
And finally, if you would like to get your own wealth management strategy reviewed, or you'd like a second set of eyes on what you're doing, whether that's with your investments, your insurance, your debt elimination, your estate planning, we would love to be a value-added resource for you and your family to make sure that you guys have everything you need to accomplish your long-term financial goals. With that, let's get back to the podcast. I don't know if I was going to say this or not, folks, but someone forgot to turn on their microphone. Or no, forgot their microphone.
I literally took it off and walked away.
Oh my gosh. And then had this great content, guys. It was the best podcast you probably ever would have saw.
Never get to see it now.
But yeah, maybe we'll release it one day. But it's all right.
It's going to be better.
Yeah, it is going to be better. And I honestly think we had some good stuff. And I think that, just as you get the chance to kind of tell your story and where you're at, that's really what I wanted to do with this section of it, is just give you the chance to kind of tell us your story, a little bit about where you're at with this process, and kind of tell people who you are. So why don't we start there?
Yeah, so my story is actually really similar to yours. I know that we've talked about that, but so you might hear some similarities, but basically I was working as an in-home healthcare provider, and doing that job, I didn't really have any sort of, I wasn't working through a company, so it was just me. I had a little savings account, little checking account, and that was literally it. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't working for a company, so I didn't have any sort of 401k or anyone telling me where to put my money, anyone telling me what type of retirement plans, options I even had available. Mm-hmm. And personally, I didn't even think that I could start something on my own or I could start investing on my own because I kept hearing this like, oh, investing is gambling. You have to have a lot of money to invest, all this different type of things. And so I didn't even know if that was an option for me or if I was even eligible for that, because I know that a lot of advisors, they want to see, at least a $500,000 minimum just to accept an account. So I just kind of started asking around, and I ended up talking to my dad, and he had been working with you for a really long time. And so that's how we got connected. And on our first meeting, I think I was just so hungry for any information at all. Like I really wanted to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And so I was kind of talking to everybody about what they were doing, and just kind of figuring out where to go from there. But I remember, I don't know if you remember that first meeting very well, but
not really. I honestly, I mean, you've seen how it is. We're doing meetings all day, every day.
Yeah, no,
so.
it's
Yeah.
with a lot of people. But I just asked you a ton of questions about what books you were reading, how you got to where you are right now, and like things that you were doing on a day-to-day basis. And obviously you remember it a little bit because I ended up becoming a happy client for a long time.
That's true.
And then you ended up reaching back out to me and just being like, hey, like I know that this is something that you were curious about and something that you were interested in learning about. If you're willing to take it seriously, you should come work with me. You can work part-time. You can earn while you learn, and we'll pay for you to get licensed. And so that's kind of...
With that, I have to interject though, because that didn't happen. I mean, we had quite a few meetings.
That's true.
And then because I remember you were asking about books and talking about that. And then I think that was what stood out to me, is that when you were asking me about things beyond just what the typical financial planning process was. And what really stood out to me was that you didn't just ask. I would make a recommendation of like, hey, try this, read this book. And you would be like, oh, I read that book. Anything else? And so I think over that period of time, I saw that when I'd asked you to do something, you actually did it, and that said a lot. I am trying to remember, because I remember when I first met your dad, that was when I was still meeting with people at their houses. And so I'd come out to you guys. I've met with,
He still hasn't been to this office.
Oh, yeah?
I guess he helped me move my desk in, but that's it.
True, yeah. So I don't know. I don't even remember. Did I ever meet you when I came over to I don't remember. I know I met some of your siblings, but I was just wondering. I don't think I ever did. That was years and years ago. It's just kind of funny how things work out. But yeah. And so, I mean, and then obviously now with where you're at, having passed, quite a few different exams and kind of being a young new advisor, what has that process been like for you? I mean, as far as just the studying, what you've learned. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, I think we've figured out you've sat in on somewhere close to 200 appointments, and that's really not something that most, young people have done. So like, what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, just going off of that, I think a lot of the times in the financial industry, firms do pay for their, employees to get licensed, but then it's kind of like they send them out into this ocean of people and just be like, okay, sell these products. Yeah. And so I definitely think that my process has been quite different. And the exams that I've taken are things that people do and have done and are doing every single day. And a lot of people have taken the exact same exams I have. They're not necessarily super hard. I did fail my first one.
Yep.
But I haven't failed one since.
Yeah. I failed my first one too. It happens. It's just you don't know what to expect. And then once you do one, you're like, that's how this is going to work. And so you can kind of, gear your studying around it and be a little bit more prepared, I think.
Yeah. And so I feel like there are exams that everybody can pass if you really want to. Every single person can pass. But the difference between my process and I feel like a lot of other people's processes is that you never told me when to take a test. You never told me when it had to be done. You never told me when certain books needed to be read. I never had a timeline. I think the real test was like, okay, can you be accountable to yourself and do what you said you were going to do? Yep. And I actually think that was the hardest part of the test was like, okay, even though I have another job, even though I have to sit in on, like, I don't have to sit on these meetings, I was hungry and I wanted it and I still want it, obviously. But it was like being accountable to myself and showing up every single day, like for myself and studying and taking all those exams with no deadline. I think when most people go to college, they have certain deadlines of like, okay, these are the classes that need to be done. This is the exact assignment. Teachers telling them what time and when things need to be done. Mm-hmm. Work is telling you what time and when to show up. Yeah. You've never told me that I've needed to sit in on meetings. You've never told me when to have an exam done.
Right.
But it's all something that like that self-motivation has been through because nobody wants to hold somebody else's hand. And
well, and that's honestly kind of the point. And and I know I've mentioned this to you before, but I've had, it happens pretty regularly where people ask me about getting into this industry or what it takes, or, hey, I want to come work for you. And, I always kind of give people the same answer. I tell them, hey, well, you need to pass this exam first before anyone will take you seriously.
Yeah, you definitely didn't talk to me. You would not talk to me.
I honestly, and I know you know this now, but I almost make it difficult. It's big boy rules. I want to see if someone's going to be a self-starter, and I'm not here to, to babysit or hold someone's hand. And so I wanted to see well, if she's going to quit, then let her quit. And at least I don't have a ton of time invested into her. And I don't mean that to be cold or callous. It's just this industry, for anyone who's looking at getting into it, it's not very easy at first. You don't make a ton of money up front. You make a ton of money on the back end, but it's hard, and you have to deal with rejection. You have to deal with people not showing up. You have to deal with learning a ton. And if, and I think if someone's has to force you to do that, this is not really the industry for you. You really kind of have to be a self-starter. That's what I saw in you. You did everything I asked, and you've continued to do everything I've asked. And, it's just one of those things where you show up when you don't have to show up, and putting in the time. And even this, this is something that we've been talking about doing for a while. And just seeing you take ownership, I think, has been a really, big thing that I've respected about where you're at. And even though you're younger, you don't act like it. You don't act like you're messing around. You're serious, and you're showing that. And that kind of goes into, unless there's anything else you want to talk about with your origin story.
I don't think so. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. There I was, all by myself, minding my own business. But
I was literally asking AI what would be a good thing to put in an origin story. He's like, maybe something that clicked for you, maybe some past trauma. I was like, truly nothing. It's not something that's even clicked. I think it's what do you like? What do you want your life to look like? And then what vehicle is gonna get you there? That's
actually, I'm glad you said that, because that's something that, I don't think we've really talked about. What got you excited about this as a career path? I mean, I don't know if we've ever even really talked. You've kind of mentioned,
I don't think so.
But why this? Why going the route of a financial advisor?
Yeah, and I don't even. That's such a good question.
Yeah, why not a million other things,
And there's so many other things out there, but it's truly what are your values, and then what is the type of thing that's going to get you there? Because I told you were not the only person that I had talked to. There was other business owners that I literally would go and I would ask people what it is that they were doing, and what if I met them, I wouldn't hunt them down or do anything weird.
She's kind of weird. I can see her hunting people down.
But there's a painter in Hamilton that I mentioned that I had been working under. She owns her own business. I was like, maybe I want to go into painting. And I had talked to multiple successful people, and it just wasn't aligning with how I wanted to eventually live my life. And you have to start making decisions based off of what does future me want, and how am I expecting to live in the future? And so that's, again, you mentioned the delayed gratification of working really hard for it now, but not expecting to get paid a lot for it now. And so with this, I feel like it allows me to, one, help people. That's one of my biggest values. And then two, I can build the life that I want while also maintaining, a healthy relationship, being able to have a family. I don't have any of those things yet, but I'm building something that is going to align with my values down the road. Yeah. And then this also is something that I can build, and it's partly mine, because it's
ownership.
Yeah, I have to take ownership of that, and that makes me really excited. That's what gives me passion, is this, doing something like this. This is I get to build this with you, and I get to put my own ideas into this. I don't have someone telling me when to clock in and what to do. It's that creative freedom.
Well, one thing too that and ultimately a goal that I would love to have is that as we grow and scale, building a system where new advisors can come in and learn, because I think this is the best industry that someone can get into. I don't know of a better career path that you can take. And the reason I say that, and these are all things you're aware of, but just for our listeners, is that when you do this right, you don't make a lot of money up front, but you make all the money on the back end, and it's residual. So if you're taking care of your clients and you are growing their assets, think of it today. So let's say an advisor is making, 30 grand a month right now. Someone would think oh, that's a great thing. And it doesn't have to take a long time to get there. I genuinely, with all my heart, believe that you will be making probably $20,000 to $30,000 within the next 5 to 6 years per month. No problem. That's just the way it works. But then let's say you get to that point and you're happy and you're comfortable. Now, like you said, maybe you have a family, maybe you're starting to have kids, you're married, maybe you want to dial back a little. Well, you can work this job maybe 10, 15 hours a week, take care of your current clients, do all that. And because of that, what we talked about with SEI earlier, you don't have to be like on the grind, but then like as your clients' assets grow, so does your income. So let's say you're making even $20,000 a month, okay? And then you do a good job of not losing clients. Well, if your client's money is doubling every 10 years or so, that 20 means 10 years from now, you're making 40 a month. And then another 10 years after that, you're making 80 a month. And then another 10 after that, you're making 160 a month. And that's why you see these advisors who are making this crazy amount of money, because it's compounding interest working on their behalf as well. So as their clients make more money, you make more money as well. And that's something I wanted to kind of go into is like, you know, you're in this spot where you are younger, you know, you're trying to do something bigger here. And like, what would you say as far as like to younger people out there who are either looking from a career path standpoint or, you know, even looking at money as a whole? Like, what's some of the things that like you've learned sitting in on these meetings and seeing every walk of life? You know, what are some of the things that you've learned that you think maybe someone who's your age might not have been exposed to, or some like nuggets that you would say, man, this has been really, really valuable to me?
Yeah, I think that I genuinely really wish people knew that like there is options for investing, because I feel like so often it's like we're hit with this wall of like, nope, you can't do that. You don't have the minimums. That's something that, you know, older people do when you want to buy a house, and it's like so far in the future that people just put it off. And so I would love for them to just know their options. I think that's where this podcast comes in, because if somebody's genuinely very hungry for information and wants to grow, they're going to find this. They're going to find other podcasts, and they're going to be able to learn from that. So I think that that's like a really good aspect of that. The other thing is just start somewhere, and it does not matter where, but genuinely just start something. If we were to take, for example, a 25-year-old investor who, you know, maybe they don't have a lot of money at the time, they just want to invest $200 per month, and say their goal retirement age is 65. So they're investing $200 per month until the age of 65. Say they get a 7% rate of return. Very conservative numbers, but at the age of 65, they would have $470,000. However, if you were to take that same investor and say they were like, oh, I don't have the money right now, but once I get my life together, once I have the career that I want, once I can start saving more money, then I'll start investing. So say they waited until they were 45. They started investing, but now because they have more money, they're able to invest $1,000. That's 5 times the amount of the 25-year-old. But say they were investing $1,000 every month until, again, the goal age of 65. At that age of 65, at a 7% rate of return, you get about $412,000. And that's a $50,000 difference between the two investors, just because they're betting on time.
Yeah, and that's such a big thing is that a lot of people miss is that the way that compound interest works, it is the time that is the factor that most people don't think. Most people think like, oh, I got to be saving all this money. One of the very first things I did for both my kids is that literally as soon as they were born, I set up UTMA accounts for them, because I knew that if I could just start putting money away for them now, that compounding effect over the next 20, 30 years of their life, that's the difference between like, you know, and something we've talked about before is like how hard it is, like where we live in Missoula, to buy a house. The starter home is $550,000 in Missoula, Montana, you know, and people's incomes aren't what they are in Seattle or in LA or in the East Coast. And so, you know, a lot of the people that I've worked with who are buying their first house, really the only reason they're doing it is because parents set money aside for them. And so just being able to make that difference and have that money work on their behalf. But then you think about a younger person who sets that money, or maybe a parent sets that money aside and maybe they delay taking it until they get to be in their 40s or 50s. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that these people have by just saving a small amount. And I think that's such a big thing there.
Well, and also I feel like when younger people, especially like my age, I mean, we've had clients come in that are around my age, a lot of them, and it's such a big goal that it doesn't even seem realistic. It's like the same way as you have at the beginning of it, like the New Year's, when people are like, I'm going to go to the gym 10 times a week. I'm going to eat only chicken and rice and maybe like a vegetable here or two, like for the next 2 years. And then by the 3rd week, they're burnt out and they're tired and they can't do it. It's like they're biting off so much that it's so overwhelming and they're burnt out. The same way as like my generation, like I understand it's very hard, like the economy is tough right now, especially to buy a house and especially to save, because most people can't even afford to live in an apartment by themselves.
Right.
But I do know that most people can still save $50 a month, $100 a month, $200 a month, wherever that price range is for you. But just start, because I promise you, your future self is never going to regret spending $50 a month to put into an IRA over spending $50 to go shopping or to go to the movies or anything like that. And it's like you also want to maintain like a good living balance, because I know that we've talked about Dave Ramsey and how he says he has very strict rules on how to get out of debt and how to save and start doing all that kind of stuff. And I feel like a lot of people see that and maybe they don't even start living. And it's like because they're so focused on money, and it's like having this mindset of save, save, save. But I don't drive the cheapest car. I don't live in the cheapest apartment. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like this aspect of what is the balance of value versus being responsible and living below your means. Like you can have a good balance. And that's why I'm like, just start somewhere and start literally anywhere. Or if you're wanting to get into the industry, start reading books, start looking at podcasts. Like just start small and start somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, that's like a great book is I think it's called like Slight Edge Theory or Slight Edge. And it's just about how little daily systematic habits, like it's like with my son Lincoln, like I literally will talk to him, hey, your daily habits are what are going to define your life. Like literally every day, your daily habits are going to make your life. Only you control your emotions. No one can make you happy or sad or, anything like that. And then I tell them, no one's coming to save you, buddy. Like, so we literally every day. And then for parents watching this, another thing that I think is just like a little free nugget. I use Grok every day where I talk with Grok and I have him give my son a motivational speech on these types of things, and just getting those small little things that, like you're saying, just starting somewhere small.
And it's also really frustrating because I think that people want like success and they want like that money with like quick fixes. And we all know that that's not realistic. However, like you see so often when people are interviewing other people on the street, like what's your secret to success? Like all this kind of stuff. People are literally giving away this information for free all the time. There's hundreds of books of people who have success and who are literally giving that information away. Us giving away that information for free. And so there's not like one thing. That's where that consistent daily habit comes in. Because on all the books that I've read and everything, it's like their daily habits are truly what builds that.
Yeah, it's so simple. I mean, that's like the saying, it's very simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And that's a lot of what I've just, again, very fortunate that in our line of work, we see the little consistent things that people do compound over time, and just taking that and putting it to your daily life. Like it doesn't have to be this huge, earth-shattering type thing, but just simple little things. And kind of going back to what you were talking about with Dave Ramsey is that I think Dave Ramsey is spot on about 95% of things he talks about. I really think he's like done so much good for the world and helping people become financially literate. However, I've also seen people who, and people say, oh, it's on them, it's their discipline and whatever. And yeah, that's true, because like he does talk about like, hey, do the things today, live today how others won't. So down the road, you can, live like others don't. I forget exactly how he says it. But I've also seen that it can be really hard when you're talking to people about like, oh, you have to just be totally focused and you have to be completely debt-free before you start saving. And the problem I've seen is that that's just not realistic for most people, and that like, not that they couldn't do it, but just that they don't. And so with Nexus, that's really kind of what we've tried to build the system around, is building a system that the average Main Street American person can follow, can still go out, can still splurge, can still have just their normal day-to-day life, but accomplish their goals and get to where they want to be. And that's kind of something else that I was like seeing with yourself as far as like just lessons you've been learning. You're talking about, the books you've read and all that. I guess a question I didn't ask last time, but I am kind of curious, like what has been the most impactful book that you've read? Has there been anything that stood out? You're like, man, I really took a lot from this, or this was really helpful. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot because we didn't talk about this, but has there been anything that you're like, this has really helped me a ton, and this has been a book that like you think people your age should read, especially if they're looking at going into sales or something like that?
It's actually a book I don't think we've talked about, but it's Girl Get Up. No, it's not Girl Get Up. It's I read it a long time ago. And maybe we'll like have to cut.
I can put it back in, and don't worry about it. I'll get it to you after camera, and then I can just input it on the top or something.
Okay, yeah. Anyways, it literally talks about habits, because I genuinely believe it's applicable to every area of your life, whether that's your business. And so I know that something that we wanted to do on this podcast was make it so that, not just financial advisors can listen to it, and not just business owners, but like literally everyone from every walk of life can listen to it and take away something. And so I feel like that's why I liked that book so much, because even if you're not a business owner, it's so good to read. Even if you're not, a young adult, it's so good to read. If you're not old, it's so good to read. Everybody from every walk of life is going to get something from that, because it literally just talks about your habits and habit stacking. Because something that was really hard for me was some specific habits. I don't know, for example, let's say like making your bed. That's like To me, I don't know why I hate making my bed, but
My wife's watching this right now is like, yes, that's Robert. If I can get him to make the bed like
yeah.
twice a week, we're doing good. I'm like, oh,
But think if you were to like stack that habit, because I know that you listen to a non-fictional book for 30 minutes every single morning.
Yeah. Monday through Friday. I take Saturday and Sunday off. But yeah, but for a long time in my life, I did 7 days a week. But yeah, you're exactly right.
And so imagine if you put your headphone in every single time you listen to that book, you made the bed. Yeah. Like it's like about like that habit stacking. I really enjoyed that book. It made me feel better about where I'm at, because again, it's like this idea of like biting off so much that you can't chew it all, or like it's overwhelming and you get burnt out. That's why I like love the book, because it's like, okay, let's like start where you're at. Like where are you at and where do you want to go, and like what habits are going to build there. Maybe just do one. Maybe just make your bed. I don't know.
No, and that's, again, those are great things that I feel like right now, like these are the little things that people think there's a secret. There is no secret. It is consistency. It's like,
hard things are hard for everyone.
Hard things are hard for everyone, and no one likes doing hard things. And so if you just embrace doing the hard things, you're going to win. And I know that was like one of the things that I will say this sometimes, and I genuinely believe it. One of the best things that's ever happened to me in life is that I've never been naturally great at anything. Never once. I've been good at things. I've always like, I was athletic, so I was good at sports, or I was good at this, I was good at school, but I was never like great. And sometimes you just have people, they're just great at whatever it is they're doing, whatever that one thing is. And so I always realize that like, I'm going to have to work. I'm going to have to outthink people, and I'm going to have to plan. I'm going to have to use strategy. I'm going to have to leverage things. And so I think you've really leaned into that as well. And that kind of leads into something else. Like, our industry is predominantly, older men. And so here you are as a young woman, and, you're kind of entering into an industry that a lot of people would look at and be like, oh, like, one, you're young, what do you know? Or how are you going to compete with these guys who've been doing this for 20 plus years? Like, what do you say to that, as far as like, what advantages do you see as someone who is younger compared to maybe people who have been in the industry for a long time? Or maybe even like, what would you say to someone who, because I know earlier on you're like, well, what am I going to do? There's going to be people who look at me and like, oh, what do you know about investing? And like, that was kind of a concern earlier on. Like, what do you say to something like that?
Yeah. Such a good question. I also want to like go back to what you were saying is like, you've never been good at anything, because it does tie into my answer is like, I think that that's something that you're grateful for. And I think that I'm also grateful for that as well. I don't think that like there was anything that really stands out that I was like super good at, or like a niche thing that I was really good at. I feel like I've worked pretty much for, all my grades and everything like that. Nothing's ever really come super simply to me. So I think that's my advantage, to be honest. I think that you think that way as well, is because we both have this mindset of like, oh yeah, like everything's gonna work out, and I'm grateful for these like different things. And so it's super easy for me to be like, well, I'm a girl, nobody's gonna listen to me. I'm young, nobody's gonna listen to me, when that's just not true. Yeah. And yeah, that might be true for some people. Yeah. However, like, I think that there's so many advantages to being, a girl or being younger. Whereas if we were to look at a lot of people in this industry, what is it, like 30% are over the age of 50?
Oh, it's more than that. It's way more than that. I would say the majority of advisors, probably 70+%, 75% even, are probably 50 years or older.
So there you go. That percentage of people, they are very comfortable where they are at. And that's completely fine. Their business is great, but it makes it really easy to win because I'm younger, I'm hungrier, and I want it more. And I'm not comfortable. And like, I know that when I'm young, people are going to have objections and have that be an objection, but I can either think, okay, their objection is that I'm young, or is their objection that I don't have the life experience that they want to see in an advisor? Is their objection that I'm a girl, or that I just don't understand where they're coming from? And so that might be their objection, but I think the real objection is what I said. And so when we're talking about the life experience, I have sat in on 200 meetings just while getting licensed. And so even though I haven't been exactly where they're at in life, I've seen 200 plus people of so many different ages, races, genders, and different areas of life, and where they've come from and where they're trying to go and how to get there. And so I've experienced them vicariously through them, and being able to like find those solutions easier. And then as far as like the gender differences, I think that like it's so hard to pinpoint what's easier and what's harder. I think that like the conversations are just going to be different. I'm not going to be able to relate with them on a jiu-jitsu level like you.
I'm really bad at jiu-jitsu, but I try so hard.
But I think that certain things are going to be easier and certain things are going to be harder, and it just kind of depends. And I think that that's true with everyone, and it's not fair to blame anything on race or gender or age at all.
Well, and what you said there kind of reminded me, and I believe it was the Certified Financial Planner Board. They did a study where, they found that it's something like in 2025 that 60% of household financial decisions are made by women. And so I think that's something that people miss as well, is that in our industry we'll have, a lot of men who have, like you said, just been kind of doing the same thing over and over and have never really evolved with the business. For example, you've seen where we're sitting in on appointments and people are still buying A-share mutual funds, which is one of the most expensive ways to invest. It's very transactional, and there's just so many better ways to invest, but it's because they're working with advisors who have been doing this for a long time. And like when I first started in the industry, 15, 16 plus years ago, it's like almost 17 years now, A-share mutual funds were the way to go, because unless you had a large sum of money, you weren't getting an actively managed account. And so I think that that's something that we've seen, that people just aren't leaning into the technology, aren't leaning into what they can do to evolve with the business. And that, I believe, is a strength that people might look at, like you're saying, your age or whatever, as a weakness, but I look at it as the exact opposite. I mean, with technology today and the way that AI is just becoming so prevalent in everything we do, it's very easy to compete at the highest level and just start leveraging that. And that was something else I wanted to ask you about, is that, again, from someone who's coming at it from a completely different perspective, like, where do you see technology, and I guess a better question, how do you see it impacting our industry? And how do you see yourself using it to kind of leverage yourself and put yourself in a position where you can serve clients in the best possible way?
I think that both of us and this, businesses in a general, with that name change, have really leaned into technology. And so there's so many different areas in which you can use AI that I think, again, a lot of advisors are almost scared to use, because one, they don't know how. Two, I think that a lot of people are worried about it, like taking over, jobs and not being able to. And I think that the face-to-face and the human connection is something that's not going to go away, at least not right now. And so I'm actually really excited for the AI. I'm really excited. The AI. I'm really excited.
The AI. It's the AI. He is taking over.
Maybe I shouldn't be using it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that I honestly am really enjoying leaning into technology, because I feel like when I first came on, you could have been like, okay, Josie, take notes. And instead of like being able to be an advisor or do anything like that, you'd be more focused on spending so much time taking notes, having more of an an assistant approach, whereas we now have AI to do all of that. Yeah. Like, we have note takers, the calendar, everything with the calendar, everything's so streamlined. And also compliance, I know that you've mentioned, has gotten stricter and stricter rules. And so it makes it so that no matter what, we're always covering, everything's documented, everything's written down, and then we're able to send those copies to clients so that they even know what's happening.
Well, that's like one of the things that, I don't know if I heard I'm pretty sure this was an original idea, maybe not. If someone else had this idea first, I apologize. I stole it. I don't even realize I stole it. But I look at AI as very similar to like the idea of, there was a time when Henry Ford was using his assembly line to build cars. And it hadn't taken over the industry yet. And probably down the road was another factory still doing things the old way. And those people went out of business. Those people, no one knows who they were. And you saw what Henry Ford did, and the way he leveraged technology completely changed not just his industry, but the world.
Well, and you can see the difference too with Blockbuster versus Netflix.
Yep, very, very true. And those are the things, is I think that a lot of people who are not leaning into using technology, especially when it comes to AI, I think they're holding themselves back. It's the way the world is moving, and I think that it's something that as soon as people embrace it, they'll also start to realize, like, one thing I noticed before with other people when I've talked to them about finances is that AI is not like a silver bullet. You still need to be a subject matter expert to get the most from it. So when I'm talking about finances and I use AI versus when the average person or clients I've interacted with use it, the outputs are not the same. So you still need to know what you're talking about to get the most from it.
I also think that, especially as a younger advisor, if somebody's a young advisor, you need to know a lot of information, because, again, is the objection that you're young, or is the objection that you can't answer questions?
I got to put you on blast. I thought this was such a great idea, and you might make me cut this, but I don't care. Tell people how you use Grok to help you practice overcoming objections.
You're definitely cutting that.
No, come on. It's good info.
No, I don't want them stealing my ideas.
Okay, that's fine. We'll cut that.
I will say I do use AI and Grok. So Grok is like basically Chat GPT.
Yeah, but it's X's version.
But it's X's
Elon's
version. So if anybody
yeah.
doesn't know what Grok is, that's what it is. But you can talk to it while you're driving. And I learn the best when I'm having a conversation because I like to yap and I like to talk. And so we'll just go back and forth on like questions and answers to try and like learn more stuff.
Yeah.
I like Grok. We have good conversations.
Yeah, Grok is good. He has some good ideas too. That Josie steals.
I sent you my search history on Grok, and you're like, "Oh, you found a scary movie." Yeah. I don't have a single original thought. Turns out, me and Grok were the same.
Well, all I know is that we were talking about something, and I asked Grok what he thought, and then Josie sent me a text like 3 minutes later.
No, it was immediately.
Okay, well, she sent me a text, and it was the same idea, guys. All right, literally the exact same idea.
It was an original thought. Like, God forbid humans have an original thought once in a while. I don't know.
I think you stole it.
I think Grok stole it from me. He's talked to me so much. He's literally starting to embody my personality.
Yeah, that might be it. But yeah, I mean, I guess as we're kind of wrapping up, like, is there anything else that you're thinking, just as you've kind of been in the industry, as you're learning, like, you know, I guess I almost am just curious too, like, you talked a little bit earlier about what you're excited about and just the opportunity to like build something, but then still have a life down the road. You know, talk more about that. Like we kind of started talking about like why financial advising, but like, you know, like if you were looking at this and maybe you're talking to someone out there, maybe another young woman who's looking for what they want to do, like what was it about financial advising that made you feel like this is the career path that's for me?
I don't think that I just don't think that there's like any one like click moment. I think that I've always wanted to be able to learn more. And also, even married women, a statistic shows that even married women need to like have their own finances. Like it's so important that even if someone is a stay-at-home wife or a stay-at-home mom, like it's so important for you to have your own finances, to have your own accounts, even if it's just a retirement account. And so I think that was really important for me was, okay, like, of course I want to get married. Of course, like I want that types of relationships, but I am not going to sit here and wait for somebody to come along and take care of me or to tell me what to do or where to invest or do anything like that. Like I feel like I need to know. And it's also something that I can constantly learn. Whereas I feel like with other jobs and other careers, there's this, so to speak, ceiling that you kind of hit at some point in life. And that's always honestly been scary for me because I don't want to ever feel like I peaked or I'm like stuck anywhere. And I feel like this is an industry where I'm never going to peak. There's no ceiling involved. And like, I'm reliant on me, whereas I'm not reliant on a boss. I'm not reliant on a husband or anything like that. And so especially for young women, like just find something that you can feel like you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing, while also being able to be reliant on yourself so that you can build more of a partnership with whoever you do marry versus, okay, what are we doing today? What are we doing now? And
I think you've like hit the nail on the head earlier with what you were saying too, is like having the ability to build something now while you're younger, that as you get to that spot in your life where once you're married, once you have a family, all that good stuff, like you don't feel like you have to grind forever. Or I see so many families where one spouse stays home and they take a pretty big financial hit because again, it's like, hey, well, we want to raise our kids. But in this industry, when it's done right and you build it early, you can still take complete care of all your clients, but also be in a spot where it's like, okay, well, I can only work 15 hours a week, but I could still make great money doing this, you know? Yeah, I'm really excited for you. I think you're going to do really, really well.
I'm excited too, because I feel like you've like laid this really good base. And now, like, you're hungry too. Like, you're like, I think we're going to be growing faster than ever because of where we're at, because you're laying like an even stronger base. You're going back to the basics and just like, okay, how do we implement AI into this? How, like, you send out market reports every single week about what the market is doing. So we're constantly on top of stuff, never getting comfortable, constantly reading every single morning. And so it's like all those different aspects. It's like I kind of am able to hop on this train, and I feel like I definitely have to keep momentum to keep up. But at the same time, the places that we're going is like we're moving fast.
And I think that's the big thing that I'm trying to do, because like what's been helpful for me with bringing you on the team is that it's forced me to start really paying attention to the systems that I have, how I do things, because ultimately I'd like to build something where we have other advisors, but I think that I would want newer advisors so I could shape them the right way, because it is true, like people come up with bad habits or things like that. And I think that's kind of what I'm really excited about, is that like we've talked about before, I think a lot of firms, they kind of create their own competition because they're greedy. They hold people back, and that like they'll say, okay, you're going to be paid out at 70% and I'm paid out at 90, but you can never pass 70. And this is what happened to me at my old firm. I got tapped out on what they would pay me. And so I saw that they were keeping a huge sum of what I was bringing in. And I was like, well, what the heck? I'm the one doing all the work here. I don't really need the help anymore. And so that's kind of my goal with you and with other advisors that we bring on, is that having a system where while you're learning, yeah, there's a financial incentive for me. But as we get to the point, like that's what's crazy. What's crazy about this is that when we get to the point where you're making $250,000 a year, that will be paying me residually between $150 and $180. All right. But then at that level, everything from that point on, like we've talked about, like bumping you up where your contract is the same as my contract. You own your book of business. It's yours. If you leave, you can take it. I don't think you ever will. But like that's kind of the whole goal, is making this the last place that people want to work. And I think that for people out there who are listening and maybe business owners trying to figure out like, how do I keep people, how do I build something where people don't want to leave? It's really creating that culture where it's big boy rules. If you can do it that way, do it that way. You might be a little slower in growing, but people will stick around. And then giving ownership and letting people know like, this is yours. And I think that for me has always been motivating, knowing that like the work I do right now is mine and it's my family's. And even for yourself, knowing that like down the road, it's your book of business. Like that to me is kind of exciting, because it's like, the ability to build something that you can ultimately sell, or that you could, have a family business. To me, that's incredible. So.
Well, and it goes back to like, again, what you were saying was, and I feel this way too, is like, again, we've never really been super great at any one niche. It's never something that's come easiest to us. And I think that's why this industry is so cool, is because I can always invest in myself. I can always like count on myself. And that's truly like all you need. Like if you can count on yourself and you don't need somebody telling you what to do all the time, you'll be fine.
That's how I look at it too.
So I know that I can be good at it.
Yeah.
And I know that this can be like my one thing that I'm good at.
One thing. Right? That's how I look at it.
Well, it's not something that needs to come naturally.
I say this and I think about this is that, and maybe just kind of as we wrap up, like when I was in the Ranger Regiment, something that I learned really quickly was that when you show up as a brand new private, you fall into a training cycle. Because when I was when the wars were still on, and so basically you're deploying every year. And so you show up, and as a brand new private, wherever they're at in the training cycle, that's where you plug in. And so these training cycles would start where it was, it's basically like crawl, walk, run. So you're going to start with like a known distance range where you're just shooting at a known distance. Okay, zero your gun, shoot at this distance. Then it's a team live fire. Then it's a squad live fire. Then it's a platoon live fire. Then it's a company live fire. And it builds up to a battalion exercise. And what I saw, the only difference between like a brand new private and like a squad leader or a platoon sergeant or something like that was that the squad leader had just been through more training cycles. They had just done the fundamentals and the basics more times, but it was the same exact thing. It's just they'd gone through that process over and over, and every time you go back and you redo the same thing, you learn more and you start getting exposed to stuff. And so I was just out shooting with a buddy of mine who got out of the Ranger Regiment as a squad leader, and he showed me something so simple that I was like, oh my gosh, how did I not know that? But I think that's kind of the secret sauce to all this stuff, is like doing the same things over and over, not getting bored with the fundamentals, and understanding that like those small little daily habits, they do compound over time. So I don't know, I think we did pretty good for the first podcast, other than you forgetting your mic the first time.
Yeah, that was not fun.
That's all right. It was still good. And I actually had a lot of fun coming back and doing this, and we ended up talking about totally different stuff. So do you have anything you want to say before we wrap up?
I think that that's a good basis of how the podcast is like we could use this, but like that's a good basis of where we want this to be, how it's kind of going to go, things that we're going to learn about. I'm like really, really excited to start talking about literally everything.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like just bringing in where we can talk to people who are experts, where we can hear stories of successful people, where we can deep dive into certain financial concepts as part of it. And also too, just talking about timely matters, things that are going on and how they affect people. Because again, I think people are looking for a space where they can get honest opinions from people who are authentic, who aren't like, I'm not trying to impress you guys. This is me. This is who I am. This is who Josie is. Like, I think that's what people want, is, authenticity and people to be honest and know that like, hey, if we say something, we might get it wrong, but you can trust that we believe what we're saying. This is not us trying to impress people, and like, this is just the way it is. So,
and we have these conversations every single day. We literally have these, and every single time I'm like, I wish people knew what we talked about, because I genuinely believe if people know the values that we have, know what we're talking about, and know where we're trying to go, there'd be no question.
Yeah, 100%.
There'd be no question about working with us or, I don't know, trust there.
Yeah, I agree. So, well, with that, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to support our sponsors. If you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. It's us. We're the sponsors. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, we'll leave a link up with all our contact info. If you would like to connect on any of your own financial planning needs, we'd be happy to help. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.